Hey everyone, Adam here, Acadian Mushrooms, and this is my show, a study of zombie Cordyceps. It's on display right now at the Dark Gallery on Portland Street in Dartmouth. What I'm going to do here is just kind of go through the concept of the show and the theme, a little bit about each piece and what they're made of and some of the challenges that I've had making them. So I hope you all enjoy. So as you all might or might not know, Cordyceps is a species of parasitic fungi. There's over hundreds of species of it that exist and infects a multitude of different types of insects. What it actually does is the spore will infiltrate the body of the insect, slowly taking over the muscle groups and the nervous system. It will then insect to go to a place that's optimal for spore dispersal. This could mean a lot of different things in a lot of different places, and it uses a lot of different methods depending on the species. Obviously, this is also something that is still being studied by scientists around the world. You can just imagine the process involved in trying to find one of these specimens, collect it, preserve it, and then study it. Especially when you're talking about multiple specimens and multiple species, it's quite a task. It's pretty incredible that we know as much as we do about these. And it's really something that I've been fascinated in for a long time, but recently have got more in depth in. And really, the point of my work, or the theme, or the style, I guess you would call it, is really a picture in time, a moment. Just like any fungus or any mushroom, you need the right conditions, the right host, the right environment for everything to come together for these creatures to propagate. And I think that's something that's incredibly fascinating to me, that, you know, it's not like a tree or something that you can go visit year after year. This is a small organism that really relies on its environment and its host to survive. I also try to integrate a bit of impressionism into my pieces, meaning that I really just kind of want you to be able to glance at it and instantly know what it is without going into minuscule detail that kind of clutters the piece. I want to keep it simple, and I want it to really show the wood and appreciate the wood, as well as the organism that is the subject matter of the piece. And I found that keeping colors simple, using the torch to char the wood, things like that, really allowed me to simplify the whole piece and just kind of honor that insect and honor that fungus that interests me so much. Another component of my sculptures are that a lot of the wood I use is waste product, meaning that it would be a lot of scraps that I reuse to create art. For example, the bases that all of these pieces are on are pieces of old tongue and groove hardwood flooring. I think that's a great way to reuse materials in a way that creates beautiful art and prevents the waste of these gorgeous woods. Another way that I honor the wood and I honor the organism is by using waste, which all you fungi people out there will know that that's what mushrooms use in majority of circumstances to grow. They break down products on the forest floor, return them to the earth in a soil form. So it's really all part of that big cycle, that ecological cycle, and I really try to show that in every single piece. So let's go into a bit about each individual piece now. The first piece we're going to start with is the zombie Grasshopper. This is also known as Cordyceps acridophylla. This was the first piece that I started with. The base is, as I mentioned before, a piece of tongue and groove hardwood flooring. The branch is carved from maple, as well as the grasshopper itself and the legs. The mushrooms on top, or the actual cordyceps fruiting bodies, are yellow heartwood, one of my favorite woods, by the way. The grasshopper, what I did was I laminated 2 pieces of maple. As I mentioned, I used scrap, so I kind of had to do with what I had, as well as the actual branch itself was another piece of maple hardwood flooring. So I used a bandsaw to cut out the basic shape, and then I used my rotary carving tool to kind of detail that. So with the grasshopper, I was doing a lot of experimenting with color, with shaping the wood, also with things like putting the legs together and the antennae. So that's, obviously one of the biggest processes is trying to glue up every one of these little tiny pieces in a way that looks realistic, but is also structural. And that was a huge challenge, especially on this piece being my first. And then on top of that, trying to mimic colors of real life, but it kind of wanted muted tones, so that the yellow of the cordyceps fruiting bodies would really pop. And I'm really happy with the way it turned out. The grasshopper itself, the form of the body, the shapes of the wings on its back. I really tried to nail the form of a grasshopper, and I think I got it. Like I mentioned before, I really go for just the general form of the insect, and insect forms have always interested me. I think insects are beautiful creatures, really misunderstood by people. A lot of people get that visceral reaction from an insect, and I don't think it's really fair, because they're a huge part of our ecosystem. They're incredibly fascinating, and without them, we literally wouldn't exist. So yeah, this was a fun piece for me to create, and it was the beginning of the series. It was what kicked me off on this journey that I've been on for the last couple months. The zombie beetle, also known as Ophiocordyceps curuleonium. That's a hard one to say. So this was another, kind of new to me thing. I love beetles. And by the way, if you don't know, beetles are pretty much the largest section of insects when it comes to types of species. There's a huge amount of species, and really they outnumber humans, similar to ants. So beetles are also essentially the reason that our ecosystem is able to keep moving. They're another part of that system that breaks down waste products from other creatures. So they're an essential part of the ecosystem. They're a beautiful form, and I really love the look of the species of Cordyceps, just the twisting and turning nature of it. And then obviously the red is a favorite color of mine. I carved the beetle itself is carved from basswood. The rocks beneath it are mahogany, and the fruiting bodies of the cordyceps is padauk. So padauk is a lovely wood. It polishes up very nice. And then I use the torch in this instance to char the wood. So that's how I got that black color, not just on the rocks and the beetle, but also the fruiting bodies, the padauk. So this was another way that I really had to experiment, was trying to figure out exactly how much to torch the wood, and then how to finish it. When you char wood like that, it really does not like to absorb finish because of the layer of carbon on top of the wood. So it was really a process of sanding and finish, and just keep building that up until it got to a point when I was happy with it. The zombie dragonfly, also known as Ophiocordyceps odonatae, which is based off of Odonata, which is the order that the dragonflies and the damselflies are a part of. Dragonflies, obviously incredible creatures. I studied back in university. I did some studying on the evolution of dragonflies, and through the Cretaceous period, and super fascinating. just the evolution of flight itself, especially with the two sets of wings and how they've developed over millennia. So when I found out that there was a Cordyceps on a dragonfly, I was like, okay, I'm down for this. So I actually carved the body of the dragonfly from bird's eye maple, which you can see on the video here, the little eyes within the bird's eye. So again, I use the black from the charring of the torch and really tried to leave little spots of the bird's eye showing to really pop. So this is the same with the wings. You can achieve kind of a brown type color if you char the wood and then sand most of the black off, and that really like gives me a bit of variation in color, so it's not just all black or all wood colored. So and then the branch again was made of maple. On this one I really pushed myself to try to kind of perch the dragonfly on the branch, so that was a huge thing, trying to attach the dragonfly. So what I really actually did was I drilled a hole into the bottom of the body of the dragonfly, and the branch is actually epoxy adhered within the dragon body, so that really helped give a bit of structure. There was also a big process of trying to figure out how to attach the wings in a way that they were structural but also looked, you know, similar to life, where they're held on very, very small piece of connective tissue. So those were some big hurdles that I had to come over, but obviously I did, and I'm really happy with it. So the zombie wasp, which is Cordyceps sphecocephala, this was something I've wanted to do for a while. Obviously I love wasps, not in the sense that I want to ever be near them. I've been stung by them and I don't enjoy them, but just the form of the body and the way that the three body segments connect together. Also, wasps are very, there's a lot of movement within their body compared to a normal insect. Their bodies contort and kind of curl, especially when they're landing on something. So I really wanted to kind of capture that with the way that the branch comes up and the wasp is kind of curling its abdomen underneath the branch. Also the wings, I love the wings of a wasp. They're not like what you picture they've kind of got like a really nice sharp edge to them. And they've kind of got this thing of like really scary but beautiful at the same time. And then of course the bright yellow, which really sets off the whole piece, I think. So again, this was carved from maple. What I did was do the initial carving, and then I actually used food coloring, which is really great for dyeing wood. So that gave me that really bright tone. And then on top of that, I actually used the torch again to char it, and that kind of faded the black into the yellow. So that was great. It really gave a great effect. The huge challenge on this one, again, the wings were a big challenge, but trying to get the legs to appear realistic, it took a lot of, putting them together, taking them apart, and trying to get the angles all just right. So that I really put like a lot of effort, not just into the carving, but actually building the piece. That's a huge component of what I do, is making sure that not just from one angle, but every single angle in 360 degrees, that looks realistic. And it also really, you don't really need to have a front or back. The piece could be put in any direction, and just the forms are so beautiful. So again, I'm really pleased with how this turned out, and I think it was a big step up. And as you can probably tell, like as I go through these, that like I've slowly improving and just getting more exaggerated in the forms and how they're mounted onto the different platforms. So the zombie ant, also known as Cordyceps unilaterus, that is probably one of the most well-known when it comes to cordyceps. It's recently, especially, I've seen it kind of circulating around the internet. A lot of artists have done takes on it, and I really love it. So this particular piece is a bit different than the others because the ant itself is carved from African blackwood, which for those of you who don't know would be very similar to like ebony. It's a very dense wood, very difficult to work with, but finishes like something from another world. It's like a jewel. And there's this hidden, it's black, but there's this hidden wood grain that really lights up. And as you can see in some of the videos, I try to kind of capture that wood grain and how it changes depending on the light. Black wood is not typically something that you will see a carver use because it's incredibly frustrating. It dulls tools, doesn't like to be sanded. But again, I put the effort in because I knew that it would be stunning when it came out. So the branch is carved from basswood. In this instance, I used a leather dye to be able to get the brown on the branch. And then the ant, again, is fully carved from blackwood. The stems of the mushrooms, or the cordyceps, are carved from basswood again. And then the tops are carved from yellowheart. So yellowheart, again, thought that would really set off the black and contrast. I really wanted this piece to be kind of unique because it is, again, the most common, popular, well-known of all the cordyceps, and so I wanted to do something a little special with it. So again, the blackwood was super difficult to work with, but with a lot of effort and a lot of concentration, I was able to get it all together and get it done. The final piece, the zombie ladybug, which is Cordyceps militaris. This is more rare. I've had difficulty finding a lot of information on this. There's actually a couple parasitic fungi that infect ladybugs, not just cordyceps. So it was quite difficult to find information. I find that just like flying insects in general, it's, you know, obviously because they are flying insects, it's probably more difficult to find specimens. And you don't necessarily have people taking photos of them. So research was definitely a difficult one with this. Now, the ladybug itself, obviously, we all know about ladybugs, and we've all seen them and kind of can picture them in their mind. So I really focused on trying to work off that picture in my mind. When it came to the spotting and when it came to the shape, I just kind of like freewheeled it. I went with the flow and just went with what I felt like it looked like, which I do with, you know, by the way, I do with all my pieces. I don't go off of directly off of a photo. What I'll do is look at a lot of photos ahead of time and get the structure and the form of the insect into my mind, and then I totally work off of that picture in my head. I think that really helps kind of capture that impressionist idea of like, this is the form. And it's not it's not a realistic portrayal. It's kind of like the best circumstances in which this organism can exist. And again, I went with the ladybug on the leaves of the grass because I thought that was, you know, typically where you would see them. And so I thought that was really neat. With the grass, there was a bit of a challenge in trying to secure them to the base because, as you can imagine, the thinner that you make them, the less there is to attach. So what I actually did was I carved grooves into the base and I glued the grass leaves down into it. So that gave it a bit more structure. In this instance as well, I actually made the legs this time on the ladybug out of metal. So that was a new thing for me. The reason I did that is because the ladybug was not easily secured. So if I would have built them out of wood, it would have been very difficult to make it structural in this case. So I went with the metal, and this is also something I wanted to work towards, was integrating metal into my pieces. I work with metal in my job, and I wanted to really go to another level again. So it was great to be able to, with all these pieces, explore and just kind of see what I can do. And it's not just trying to represent the insect, but it was also an exploration for me and experimental. And I really enjoyed the whole process of going piece to piece. And I'm really happy with how they all turned out, and super stoked that everybody has been so receptive and so awesome, giving me support. So thank you to everybody. Thank you to the Dark Gallery. And if you want to see them, you can go by the Dart Gallery until March 26th. They'll be on display there along with a lot of my mushroom pieces. So go take a stop by. And if you're not local to Halifax, then yeah, I'll be posting some more photos and things like that over the next couple weeks. And yeah, and thank you for listening.